We're like the only ones in the chat. Let's go.
All right. Hey, everybody. Today is just me, Beau, and Sam.
Oh,
Today
Are we like this weird owl?
Yeah, I've got like
it's
it's a
okay.
T.
It's kind of like
a
a
T.
T
Cool.
shape.
It's like
yeah.
Tetris. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
So today we are going to discuss the video that came out from D&D about the new Dungeon Master's Guide that's come out. And fittingly enough, the three people here today are the ones that do have DMing experience. So we can contribute to the conversation. So I've got my own opinions on it, but I'd like to hear from you guys first. So it's like almost a 30-minute video. Beau, I guess, what stood out to you most in that video, or was reaction you want to talk about?
Well, as being essentially a new DM myself, I only have about 15 sessions under my belt. I'm looking forward to how they're, because I mean, reading the Dungeon Master's Guide now, they talk about it pretty early on in the video. It starts off with basically, big world building escapades for a dungeon master about like currency and the politics and things of that nature. And then later on in the book, it starts to talk about the dice and just the core basics of actually playing and being a dungeon master. So this kind of flip flopped, and it'll be good for them to go back and revert it and basically make it so that it'll be easier to find things to actually go through, because the way it is now, it's not very organized in a way that's friendly for people to read. So you'll be able to just quickly thumb through and find things, as well as they're going to be incorporating the newer books into it, like Xanathar's Guide and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So it'll kind of be a hodgepodge of everything that should essentially be, more relevant, as it is about 10 years old now. So I think it'll be a good addition to what they have currently.
I know my reaction to that overall formatting is, who is their audience? Because I would venture most people that get into DMing started as a player. And so then when you do have to switch over, I'd imagine, I mean, this is how I started. I started as a player, and then the DM left, so I said, hey guys, I'll take over. And so I grabbed a published adventure and ran it from the published adventure. It almost sounds like when I'm watching the video, they're wanting to write this DM's guide for people who haven't done either before. Like, here's how you do it when you have no knowledge beforehand. Whereas I would imagine most people get their experience from grabbing a pre-published adventure and running that. And then, like you said, using the current one as a reference guide. Like, oh, I need to know this rule. Let me go look it up. That was my initial reaction, is who's the audience in this? Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, to actually rebuttal that, that's perfect. I was the opposite. Before starting like traditional classic D&D, I had played a few modules that were kind of based off of 3.5 and 4e. Like there's a superhero one called AMP that I played that might just be a different system entirely. It's been a long time since I played that one, and a Star Wars module that was very much based off of like 3.5 and 4. But when I came in terms of having any 5e experience, I was one of those people that was both a new player and a new dungeon master, where I didn't even know how spell slots worked or really understood that concept. And I was going to be DMing for a party of spellcasters. So, like, going back to what Beau was saying about the organization of the book, spoiler alert, I didn't actually read the DM's guide. I just read the player's handbook and be like, that's enough for me. Let's go for it. And realizing that might not have been the best idea, because, like, as good as it is, like, help flesh out the world and build it, especially going from like in your experience when you first started, you need a published campaign, and I've run a few already, as so as Beau. We know that it can be very railroaded in like the best sense of this of those sense, because like here is a campaign from start to finish, so it has certain story beats it has to reach and certain level caps and so on and so forth. There are side quests, but all of those are structured throughout the campaign. You're given like a time to be like, oh, this is what I want to get into. So having like the organization in there, like, oh, to break it down at the beginning is nice, like breaking down the basic rules. Because when I first read, like, here's how you build an open-ended campaign world, it was very daunting, and I think that's why I kind of like, you know what, I got this, because it is very daunting. But from that perspective as well, like going from like a more rigid gameplay to more open and broad gameplay, I like how in the video they talk about like how they will now have like a campaign setting as like an example, like a very bare bones campaign for examples of certain things, the show not tell, which I think is awesome. I was reading the comments also of that video when it was talking about how the fourth edition book had basically a campaign book in its DMs, a campaign in its DM's guide to take from, which in retrospect I love that, because especially like when I was in college and I was going for my degree, I was very hands-on learning, a lot of labs, a lot of like using theory. So it was nice to see actually in nice pants. It was nice to see
I'm in my
actually
pajama pants.
love it.
But speaking of fourth edition, so this one of the things they talked about, the rules compendium, you could go through alphabetical and it gives you all the rules that you could look up.
That is nice.
And
they're doing that in this though.
Yeah, and that's what made me. I was like, I have that book from fourth edition, and so yeah, this would be great. I mean, especially this because it's nice hand size. You could flip through it real easy. So yeah, a fifth edition version of a rules compendium, fantastic idea.
Yeah, 100%. And like, and once again, like having that campaign to like show rather than tell, I like a lot for the visual learners out there. Also, something that I found that was really cool, might be like a small thing, but they explain what a DM screen is for. Like when I started like on here with our virtual game that we play, it's very easy for you to just have multiple monitors up, Aaron and Beau, and just have all your stuff right there. You don't have to worry about people peeking over. But for those who played in-person games, like Aaron, you have, and I know you spent quite a pretty penny on a really nice like wooden DM screen.
It's supposed to come this month.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Dope. I can't wait to see it. When I was doing it in college, I had my school-appointed laptop, and that was it. And I think I had a binder I found in a tree that said AP English on it, so I wrote AP D&D, and I had like all my notes and stuff inside the 3-ring binder of like DM stuff, and I used that like, here's my laptop, here's my folder propped up so no one can see, and I had this like little ramshackle setup basically, and I had like a few dice behind me, but like all my notes were there, so I never really understood what a DM screen is for until like I saw the videos of like either content creators or like independent artists and manufacturers kind of talking about like, oh, here's what we offer. So it's nice, it's going to be nice to see them actually explain what the DM screen is for, and maybe like set a precedent, like here's what you should have to run your campaign, because as a new player having so many options, it's overwhelming. So being able to be like, start here and then branch out, and hopefully people take after it more.
It's funny too, what I really, now that I've been doing this for probably 15 years now, is, especially for 5e, I don't really need the rules that much. But when I do my in-person games, I have to have my DM screen solely because that's the easiest way to track initiative. And so I've got the little initiative trackers that hang over the top. And so nice. I put those in order, and so you know who's coming up, and it keeps combat flowing. That's really all I really use it for. Occasionally, if I forget a condition or something, I'll look that up. But honestly, the rest, like if I'll roll behind the screen, but if I'm like, all right, guys, let's see what happens, and then I roll in front. So like one of the cool things I got on that fancy Wormwood DM screen, which you don't want to know how much I spent on that.
You told us. We know.
All
of
their stuff is so.
It's crazy.
It's so pricey.
But I got the double dice tower, where it can either come out the player side or come out my side.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's
so
very
I was
cool.
Like, that's pretty sweet.
That is awesome. Yeah. But no, yeah,
Another
like,
thing.
oh yeah,
Oh,
go
sorry, go
ahead,
ahead.
Bo. No, you go. I
Well,
just you're good.
you
I got.
mentioning that is another point that I thought to bring up is they talked about in Tasha's. They had mentioned, session 0.
Mhm.
So that's another thing they'd be talking about in the book is kind of like just going over that because I feel like a lot of times, the only way to find out how to do a session 0, what you should include it is, YouTube videos from content creators, which they even mention in here. That's how most people learn, outside of the DMG about how to actually run the game. So I think it'd be interesting to see what they say is like important to put in there. I'm also excited for all the updated artwork they said that's going in there because that's one thing I love about D&D. Just the artwork is so much fun to even just look at. So
And I
Oh yeah.
think too, they talked about session 8 as a surprise or whatever.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
chap,
yeah,
And
yeah,
then near the
chapter
end
8
of the
mystery.
video, well, if you notice near the end of the video, he was like, you remember like you get what do DMs need? They need maps and maps that you can use for other different things that are modular. That's what session 8's gonna be. I'm calling it right now. It's gonna be maps.
Oh no, yeah, they said like there's gonna be like a poster map too. So it's like it would be cool if like because they have that example campaign. If
Mhm.
that's like a lot of people in comments and stuff, it kind of makes sense. Like if that could be like what Chapter 80 is about is like that campaign. Like here's the example of the campaign. Now let's see you run it. Like once again putting that theory into practice. Um, Also something I'm really excited for. I love like lore and fantasy lore about anything like Star Wars, Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, like you name it. I will delve deep into like lore for like hours and rabbit holes on like Reddit or YouTube, whatever, from like really good creators and stuff. So it's nice that they're having a lore section of it to explain key features of like not just like your own homebrew game, but like the actual world of D&D and to like actually like incorporate that like now like they were talked about like Waterdeep they talked about some NPCs. One of the ones I thought about was is the not the night elf, that's World of Warcraft, the drow hunter, the drow ranger. I think it's Drizzt, right, from like the novels
Drizzt.
and books.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, like he could probably have like his own like actual backstory, and it'd be really cool then for new DMs to come in and think of like of really cool NPCs to introduce. Why not introduce one of these guys?
Yeah.
So it's nice that they have that lore section. They briefly touched upon the monster manual, saying they're gonna create like
Yeah.
the British and like the British encyclopedia of like monsters, basically, with
Right.
like everything they're doing to like upgrade it and stuff.
In Britannica.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Britannica.
It's like British.
I'm British. It's close enough, maybe.
Well,
Sorry to the British people out there.
and adding on to that, not even just lore on special characters in the game. They mentioned they're going to add more lore, like some lore in the DMG about specific monsters and creatures that is just outside of just their standard stat block, like explaining where they're from, or just something nice like that, which could be especially useful for
Well, that's it.
trying
I
to.
found that interesting too because when we were doing those comparison things of what changed,
Oh yeah,
we found that in a lot of the entries they pulled a lot of that lore out. Like, I don't know, Sam, if you remember, I remember when I was doing my research on the old version and new version,
Oh yeah.
that I was like, well, in the old version, I've got 2 pages worth of backstory.
Yeah.
Now I've got a paragraph.
Yeah, Manny will attest to this. Like in every video we made, shout out to our videos of the comparisons. You guys should check them out. If you have pretty low views right now, and you guys can
link in the
bump it up.
description. You can
Link
check
in
it
the
out up
description.
here. We'll point
We'll
up
just,
here.
I'll put it somewhere.
we'll make a playlist of all those. I think that like instead of like multiple links. But yeah, you're right. Like one of the things we would talk about, like in comparisons, like what's the pro, what's the con, who did it better, was background. Because you're right, it would maybe have like maybe 2 paragraphs, but then you look in like the old monster manual. Like I have one physical book, and that's the monster manual. Okay, so like I have that like bookmarked and noted with like all types of like different CR creatures for different environs for like when I was running my old campaign. That's like those sticky notes are like years old, but like I still flip through to like see what to look up. But they have so much lore about them, like where they live, how they behave, their habitats, what they eat, what they hunt, who hunts them. And it's so nice to kind of like flesh that out, especially for like for a scenario, like if you're planning like a session, you think like what's a cool monster to throw in there? Maybe everyone always goes for the flashy. What about the practical?
And
You
I
know?
think that plays to the evolution of where D&D is going is, oh, well, anything can be anything at once. It's like, well, then you lose that lore. You lose
Exactly. Yeah.
that rich background that you can take something from. And yes, especially for player characters, let your players do what if they want to be a good drow, fine. But that's such an interesting story of having that player act in contradiction to whatever the typical upbringing or what the lore is.
Exactly. Like, I don't know, like you probably know about the lore, Aaron. I don't know about Beau. He might too. He's a pretty big nerd on this stuff. But in our campaign, I play Yuan T Pureblood, and in the lore, they are like cannibalistic slave masters. So it's like trying to turn, and it was from like the evil player compendium of like races to take from, before Tasha's like revamped them. So to like take from that, I had to like that's what it really like because I always wanted to make a Yuan T character, but I didn't want to play him evil. It's because I didn't want to like butt heads with like a group of people, especially if like most of them were like good aligning. I didn't want to be that guy. It's like let's eat them and enslave them, like that. That doesn't really. That's not gonna do well. So it's like, as you know, in our campaign with my warlock, I basically did it like he's the last of his kind. He doesn't know what he is, like literally what species. He's humanoid, but he's not. So like his strive in this campaign is to kind of like go to be an explorer and go look into ancient ruins and anthropology and archaeology and kind of find out the roots of what he is and hopefully like get some answers. And it honestly it made for for me at least, some really fun story beats. And it was really cool to see what you would throw at me in terms of that, and just throw in like the warlock pact of like secret knowledges and stuff. It just kind of like melded all together into a very fun character that I've been playing with now for 3 years. So
and from a DM's perspective on that, I've got a background to go on of what the Yuan T culture was. And so you have that expectation that I can then screw with. If there's no lore there, you either the DM and player have to spend the time to come up with it, and that's fine if you want to do that. Otherwise, I can be like, all right, we're using what Wizards of the Coast says, and that's your expectation, and then I can mess with that expectation.
Yeah, like it could have been really cool, like in the campaign, to like come across like a very ancient group of like high elves or something who were like nearly a century year old, like a bunch of druids who like age much slower, who remembered the Yuan Ti when they existed in that world and had hostility towards me, just and that like inadvertently, like just naturally, and be like, oh, why do you got beef? And it'd be like, why wouldn't we? And I'd be like, I don't know. So it'd be really cool to play on that.
So switching, there's another part of the video I was curious on to get your guys' reaction on, and that was, how do you think Wizards of the Coast will create a chapter on teaching people how to improv? Because in that video, they talked about how improv was one of the biggest talents of a DM. And I know, just kind of real quick for me, I kind of grew up with that, and so I'd already had that ability established pretty early. I developed it. I didn't have to learn it in D&D, but I definitely developed it in D&D. Beau is probably the newest DM. What's your reaction on that, learning or using the improv ability?
I think it's gonna be really hard. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where you could read about it until you're blue in the face, but until you actually get thrown into the deep end, it's because I mean, there's stuff that you could read up on like a million times, and then until you actually have to deal with it, that's when I think it'll be like where you actually, improv and improvise how it is. Because there's a lot of times where stuff gets thrown at you, like, and even at level 4, some of the stuff I get asked, I'm like, well, how what exactly should I do here?
Where you get stumped by the player, you're like,
yeah,
time out.
Yeah, time out. Let me start looking something up.
Slow down.
It might be good if they have some just generalized things to do with that. Some kind of just basic notes for like what to do when that comes up. When you
I don't know how many times I've let you guys talk as a party while I'm like frantically making some kind of map because you're going somewhere I didn't expect.
You literally stopped a session like, you know what? That's a good place to stop because I don't have this ready yet. Yeah, like especially going back to me, you know how I like to kind of keep you on your toes there and just throw random shit at you. It's always fun to see you scramble. It is a little fun, but you do such a good job in like coming back to it and like being ready for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like over the 3 years we played together, you really like now like come to understand it. But going back to like that section, um, you are right. Like I have a theater background, so like yeah, you have a script on stage, but there are points you have to improvise and kind of like get to like a certain story point or like kind of like you're on stage in front of a crowd, you gotta like make sure that the play or the show keeps running. And sometimes things go awry. You could be sparring with wooden sabers and your wooden saber breaks at the beginning of the fight and you're like, we have like a bunch of like other choreography to get to, like how are we gonna sum this up? So you kind of have to like improv it with your partner and like kind of play off each other. Though, so basically, Beau's right. You can't really learn it unless you like do it. It's going to be something to experience. But something that a lot of the source books, like Xanathar's, Tasha's, even Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I know a lot of people don't talk about the one a lot, but they had pages and pages of random tables to roll on. And I feel like that's the best way to do any type of improv. You don't have to memorize them, but there's nothing wrong with like you're entering into a certain cave, some stuff is happening. You have things planned in there. You can even make your own tables to like randomize what's going to happen or what they face. Like I have 10 things prepared. Let's roll a d10 and kind of go from there. And then
Sam, you know my technique.
I know you. I know your secret.
Yeah,
I
he ratted it out to us.
I
last week.
I did write you out. I think when the server was down. It's
Wait,
like,
you did?
God.
Now we all know.
Well, tell our viewers then. Tell our viewers.
So our DM has us roll on tables sometimes to like when we travel over a period of days to kind of figure out like, hey, what's gonna happen? And we always think like, oh, we rolled really badly. It's our fault. It's a lie. He's like, I always had it planned. I just wanted to give you the illusion of choice. And it's really something beautiful. For other DMs, that's a way. But to go back to the random and improv, if they really sets of tables like that, very basic to be moldable into anything. Not only will they morph their improv skills to that, well, they'll still have to like learn improv on the fly, but it gives you the starting point. And I think that's going to be the hardest when your brain is shooting off at like 1,000 different places. Having a die decide where your starting point is from really helps narrow down that choice. And that if you're seamless with it and you have those tables up and you're ready and you've practiced, it's gonna look like improv, and your player's gonna be like, "How do you do it on the fly?" You're gonna be like, "It's a piece of cake," but in your mind, everything's on fire because like you're like, I can't believe I pulled that out of my ass," but they're gonna love you for it. And
so
that's what scene he's about.
So I don't think I've told you guys this. So when they were talking about in the video, when they're talking about that improv, they talked about the DM sitting and listening to the players, and then going off of that, and that immediately brought me to Beau's character. Had a long lost brother and sister. And so they were heading to a town where there was this Robin Hood type character that I was like, it's a dragonborn, they're doing this. And so as the players were talking, they're like, all right, you're camping for the night, you'll be there tomorrow. They started to role play, and I don't remember who it was, but it was like, Beau, or Dalbrick's his character. Dalbrick, what if that guy's your long lost brother? And I was like, oh shit, that's a fantastic idea.
I think it might have been Chuck that asked that too.
Yeah, and so I didn't plan that at all, but I thought about it and I was like, yes, that is his long lost brother, and it worked out great. And so that's that improv where I was like, these guys gave it to me.
That's
and then they're
awesome.
like, Aaron, you're a genius for linking all this together. And I'm like, yes, I am.
It's once again the illusion that we did something.
That's right.
I love that. I love that so much because the story beat wise, that made so much sense.
Yeah, it worked out well. All right, well, we're coming up on our game time. So, any final thoughts, Beau?
I'm looking forward to what they come out with, and hopefully, it's easier to read for new DMs. But I think DMing can definitely be a daunting task, but it's definitely something that I think everyone should do. I mean, I've had a blast doing it, and I think that if they make this new book more open for people to get into, and it's not seen as you open it up and it's, oh my goodness, where do I even start? And they kind of bring you to those basic steps. You start here, you eventually get to world building, and then they even have that adventure in there in chapter 8. It's like, okay, they gave me all the tools, and now I know what I need to do. I can throw this into this starter town or village or whatever they decide to give you. It'll be a great jumping off point, and then you're in there.
Sam?
We need more DMs in the world. Like everyone knows, if you're looking for games online, they're like, I part some Facebook pages, and the guy's like, I want to run a campaign, and within 5 minutes, he has 200 comments being like, Hey, I'm interested. Hey, I'm interested. We definitely need DMs, and I am for the approach that all of this, either one D&D, 6e, 5e, 5.5e, whatever they end up calling it, is going to be new player friendly. To not just keep the vets going forward, but to bring in even more people into this beautiful world of role playing and imagination. So, how they're structuring it and how they're hopefully going to model it for the new player, but still have stuff for the old player to be able to look in and really more understand and delve into. I'm 100% for. I'm really looking forward to that restructure, and I might actually read it this time. Well, now as a player with the experience.
No, I understand. I mean, because I haven't read through all of it, but I definitely go through. I pick out the most important
Oh
things,
no,
and
yeah,
then
yeah, that's
yeah,
more than me. That's more than me. Like I said, I didn't know how spell slots work. When you have a party of druids, you do not know how spell slots work. We're all learning as a team. It's great.
All
Or
right.
challenge rating. That's what was tough.
Yeah.
that'll
All right.
tough.
Well, that is all the time we got for today. So if anyone was watching, thank you. And yeah, we'll catch you next time. Bye.